but they're actually at historically normal levels of 4 to 5%. The rises that we're seeing, is that a kind of necessary medicine, a resetting that maybe we all have to go through and learn? I mean, your business has really suffered, but all of us are now having to reckon with the real cost of money.
Yes, interest rates did need to increase. However, if you increase them too quickly, it's unsustainable. It's such a jump that the only way we're going to manage that is a huge fallout.
A number of people I spoke to argue that one very significant reason we are seeing record business failures now is that low interest rates had played an important part in their survival in the years before everything changed. Had companies been trading in a period of interest rates set at more normal levels, when debt was more difficult to come by, a number might well have failed earlier. So, have there been large numbers of dead companies walking, or zombies, among us for years? And are they now beginning to fall? Julie Palmer again.
People often ask, what's the definition of a zombie business? There is no technical definition. You can imagine a zombie. That's what a zombie business is. It's just hanging on for a life, but it's not really contributing much. So, my definition of a zombie is just about hanging on at a 0.5% interest rate, then they'll be struggling with interest rates of 5%.
A report in June 2023 by the International Monetary Fund said the numbers of zombie firms grew in the 2 decades of low interest rates, and that the COVID pandemic further fueled their numbers. Merit Somerset Webb again.
Well, I first heard it back in Japan in the 1990s. It definitely very much came into use then to describe companies that had been absolutely fine during the Great Japanese bubble, but coming out the other side of it were exactly this, barely hanging on, just about able to cover the interest, sometimes not even that. The big banks in Japan, they didn't want to take those losses. The government didn't want banks to take the losses. So there was an awful lot of forbearance, and these zombie companies were just allowed to keep going. And there is an idea that it was that large number of zombie companies in Japan during the 1990s that were responsible, in part, for the stagnation of the economy during the period. But it's unlikely that from here on in, we're going to have a Japan-style zombie period, because we've seen these numbers that insolvency rates are already de-zombifying parts of the economy, and our banks are not going to hold the same way banks in Japan did in the 1990s. The forbearance doesn't exist in the same way. And we can't ask our banks to consistently operate forbearance policies that allow businesses that are not long-term viable to continue. That doesn't help anybody.
Inside of their own 22 and a bruising start straight away from
Creditors calling in their loans, forcing unviable businesses to fall. That's exactly what happened in professional rugby.
what's on the left-hand side of the field.
In late 2022, 4 professional clubs were forced into administration, including 2 Premiership clubs, Wasps and Worcester Warriors. Wasps owed £2 million in unpaid taxes to HMRC, as well as £35 million plus interest to bondholders for a scheme used to purchase the team's stadium in Coventry in 2014. Andrew Sheridan is a former rugby player, a live rugby commentator, as well as a restructuring and insolvency professional with FRP Advisory in Bristol. I caught up with him as he prepared for a live broadcast to hear how, as the official administrator for Wasps, he personally broke the news of its demise to players and staff.
I recall that day vividly. All of the workforce, the boss, the players, all the backroom staff, there were 160. Redundant, and it was just shock and a little bit of anger, and then quite a lot of tears, to be honest, and it was quite sad to see.
Some of the players described it as a bereavement.
I think it genuinely was for them. It's a gut punch in any business, but I think sporting clubs, when you all play together as a team, it almost comes as a shock for someone to say you won't be playing again, not as a group, not as Wasps, that's finished. But some of them have been there, you know, right from their very start as young adults, you know, straight from school. And it was pretty traumatic.
Andrew says the problem is simple. Rugby doesn't earn as much in revenue as other team sports, such as football. Like many businesses, low interest rates and government support allowed some clubs to borrow cheaply and spend more than they made.
Even though I love it, being part of my life, it's a minority sport. The people that run the sport, they're going to have to address the cost base, because otherwise they're just going to increasingly rely on those few, you know, super wealthy individuals that are basically bankrolling their hobby. The foundations of that are rather shallow, aren't they? Because the minute they decide to walk away, there's nothing to support it underneath.
Rugby is an especially emotive example.
Hello, good morning. I'm going out to Walton Point. I took the trailer for VMU. Thank you.
Back in southeast London, I walked down Broadway Street, a pedestrianised retail avenue that epitomizes the tectonic shifts in our economic landscape. Amidst the mini-malls, street stalls, and independent shops are the ghosts of the past. A boarded-up Wilko, an empty Debenhams, and a shuttered Laura Ashley shop, as well as green shoots of recovery. With me is local insolvency practitioner Jeremy Frost, pointing out the new businesses that have replaced the old. A virtual reality gaming center, a new climbing wall, a jiu-jitsu academy. He says change is the only constant.
You pump money into the shop. Some of the shops that are now these other things, they would still be there, not making money.
Right.
And you've got someone now who's prepared to invest, do things differently. It might work.
It sounds a little bit counterintuitive to say we should let businesses fail. But normally what happens is the jobs will recirculate, the local capital will be better utilised, and that's where we begin to see a bit of a recovery. So that's not happened. We've kept those businesses artificially alive. And I think maybe it is the time now that those businesses do begin to fail, particularly when we've got a very buoyant jobs market out there. We've still got a skills gap across many sectors. There probably are better places for those jobs to be recirculated with businesses that can use those people more effectively.
But not all failed businesses are zombies. And people's lives and futures are being laid waste by the rapid rise in interest rates combined with current economic conditions. Kerry Lee, who runs Cross Group Builders in Cardiff, says he has many sleepless nights worrying about his business.
I am, third generation builder in my family. We've all hit hard times. Just speaking to my father the other week, he said he'd never seen anything like this, But failure is not an option. It's not just my family who would suffer if we were to close the doors. It's our staff members that will suffer. And, in a company like mine, we're all close friends. We're all close. So, I've watched my auntie and uncle there, they closed their building company just recently. And, they lost their home. So it's just, I just can't give up. And, I don't want to let anyone around me down. So we've got to keep on going.
For restaurateurs Tony and Becky, their difficulties will not end once they close the doors on Copper and Ink. They personally guaranteed some business loans, and are now burdened with debts they can't easily repay.
It's been about 40%, which is, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's
No, that's no.
I wish. But no, we don't. Unfortunately for us, it means that we not only lost the business, we have debt, and we're going to lose our house, for example. So we'll have to sell our house to try and pay it back.
that there are tears as well. You know, this is really hard for both of you. And although your voice doesn't betray it, I can see it.
We've eaten up all of our savings. We also now haven't got jobs, haven't got savings, and are taking on this debt. To sell the house means that we can clear that debt, but to sell the house also incurs an expense. We have to pay our mortgage provider a percentage of the mortgage, which means we're losing another £14,000 on top. So the £40,000 is actually going to be about £60,000 we'll lose in the process. And of course we can't just go and buy another house because we don't have jobs. And we can't really stay in London because in this process we're losing £60,000. So then we're having to find somewhere that's outside of London. So it's one thing after another. All of the factors that have gone into where we are now were born of decisions taken by people in power and that have affected all of us. Even down to COVID lockdowns and the COVID bounce back loans. I'm not suggesting that every decision that was taken was wrong, and I'm not suggesting that I don't agree with every decision that they took, but I think that a lot of this could have been avoided. I think that actually we'd be better off trying to keep everybody working, everybody spending. That's my personal opinion.
These stories of loss doesn't change the overall economic reality, but it does bring home that decisions made in good times, even when they appear to benefit us all, can still mean there's a painful price to pay further down the road.
Presented and produced by Anne Alland. It was a whistle-down production for BBC Radio 4, where in just under 5 minutes' time, Claus will be here.
Antisocial on BBC Radio 4.
Cancel culture is awful. They're like trying to cancel our country.
Cutting through the polarisation and pylons of social media.
It's almost like a sort of endless loop of people pointing fingers at each other.
Shedding light on divisive issues with informed perspectives from both sides.
Who exactly does it harm anyone?
They think that if you don't engage in it yourself, you must hate it, which isn't the same thing.
Antisocial with me, Adam Fleming, on BBC Sounds and Radio 4.
There should be the line in the sand to say, look, this is where this stops.
Live on Fridays at midday.
This is BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at midday. Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch has criticised what she said was a small minority of Conservative MPs speculating about bringing down Rishi Sunak. There have been reports in recent days that some Tory backbenchers want to replace the Prime Minister with the Leader of the Commons, Penny Mordaunt, before the next general election. Ms Badenoch said Potters should, in her words, stop messing around. The Prime Minister, who's on a visit to Warwickshire, has given his response in the past few minutes.
I'm not interested in Westminster politics. It doesn't matter. What matters is the future of our country, and that's what I'm squarely focused on. That's why I get up every morning working as hard as I can to deliver, whether it's cutting people's taxes, increasing the state pension, today increasing the number of apprenticeships and talking to small businesses. Those are all the things that matter to people.
The media regulator Ofcom has ruled that GB News broke impartiality rules during programmes presented by Conservative MPs. The watchdog looked at 5 episodes of shows hosted by the serving minister Esther McVey and the backbenchers Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg and Philip Davis. GB News called it a chilling development for freedom of speech. Here's our media correspondent David Sillito.
MPs are allowed to present TV programmes, current affairs shows, but not the news. Ofcom studied programmes presented by the Conservative MPs Jacob Rees-Mogg, Esther McVey and Philip Davis, and found that on 5 occasions those rules had been breached. Jacob Rees-Mogg, it said, presented coverage and commented on the verdict of Donald Trump's civil trial, and Charles's alleged political views and the government's immigration policy. The broadcaster, however, isn't facing any fines or sanctions, but has been warned that may change if further breaches occur.
The Israeli army has called on people in and around Gaza's biggest medical facility to leave immediately as its forces are coming raid on Shifa Hospital. The military said Hamas fighters had regrouped and were using the compound as a command centre. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza said a fire had broken out at the entrance of the hospital, using what it called cases of suffocation. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron has said that the outcome of the Russian presidential elections underlined the depth of repression under President Putin's regime. Mr. Putin faced no credible opposition candidates and got 87% of the vote to secure a fifth term in office. He's promised to prioritise the war in Ukraine. China congratulated him on the election result, but Western governments have denounced it as a sham. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, condemned the conditions the poll was held in.
This has not been free and fair elections. Highly restricted environment. This is diplomatically what I can say, but more than that, this election has been based on repression and intimidation, and being held on the Ukrainian occupied territory, violating Ukrainian sovereignty.
Britain's most successful female Olympian, Dame Laura Kenny, has announced her retirement from cycling at the age of 31. Dame Laura, who's won 5 gold medals and has been targeting the 4th Olympics in Paris this year, said that her feelings had changed since the birth of her second son last July, and she wanted to stay at home with her children.
So the sacrifices of leaving the children and your family at home is really quite big, and it really is like a big decision that you have to make. And it was getting more and more that I was struggling to do that. And then more people asked me what races was I doing, what training camps was I going on. I didn't want to go, ultimately, and I think that's what it came down to.
Malaysia is considering hosting a slimmed-down Commonwealth Games in 2026 after the Australian state of Victoria abandoned the event due to high costs. Officials say money could be saved by having fewer sports and less lavish opening and closing ceremonies. The final decision will rest with Malaysia's government, which is expected to discuss the matter this week. BBC News.
This is BBC Radio 4, where it's time now for You and Yours with Winifred Robinson.
Hi, welcome to Radio 4's Consumer Programme. Today, there's a shortage of NHS dentists in the UK. Some people are going abroad for routine dental care. And you?
Yeah, I know some people consider that you can go away for a week and get a holiday at the same price as having a treatment. I just don't trust the standards in other countries.
By a new generation of photographers is snapping up old digital cameras. We hear from graduates struggling to pay off their student loans because of the interest being charged.
Graduated, I had about £63,000 of debt. Since then, in the 2 years, it's gone up to about £68,000, even though I've started with
Have some advice on what to do. You can contact us by email, by text, and on X. On X, we are #YouandYours. The text number is 84844. Email address is youandyours@bbc.co.uk. Determined to make money by buying tickets at face value price, then selling them on the internet at much higher prices. Now, Labour says it wants to ban ticket touting and will do if it gets into government. Last week, in a speech to leaders in the creative and cultural sector, the Labour leader Keir Starmer said this.
As we can't let access to culture be at the mercy of ticket touts and drive up the price. So a Labour government will cap resale prices so fans can see the acts that they love at a fair price. Art's for the people and by the people.
Keir Starmer, British Shari Barnhill. Shari has been investigating ticket touting now for many years. But Shari's bigger than ever, hasn't it? It's enormous. Look, just a small example. ABBA Voyage is a hot ticket at the moment. It's all in London. It's the show where the avatars of the real ABBA are on stage. They're singing the old numbers. The audience go completely bonkers for it. And on the official site, the tickets cost around £150 each, which is expensive enough. But on the big reseller site, via GoGo,
tickets for exactly the same part of the theatre go for £600 each. Now, you mentioned Taylor Swift. On Viagogo on Friday, I was looking and I found a trader who claimed he could sell me 8 tickets for the Liverpool concert in June. How much? Each ticket was £3,540.
That is a lot.
Now, the face value would have been about £111 a ticket, so you can see the money to be made. And don't forget, Viagogo makes 25% on each sale.
But Shari, Taylor Swift and lots of other artists, they're doing what they can, aren't they, to try to stop this. So I know that you can only buy 4 tickets for Taylor Swift, so how is the tout able to sell you 8 of them?
Well, you and I can only buy 4 tickets. Some touts are buying tickets from other people and then selling them in larger groups. But some are using special technology, queue jumping technology, in various names to hold us tickets. And we showed this was actually happening in real time. Last year when the Eurovision took place, and we were able to watch online as a group pushed ordinary fans backwards in the queue to let the touts using their software push in and scoop up lots of the cheapest tickets. Now, I found a man selling the software through a subscription service. His name is Josh Silverman. His group was called The Golden Circle, and here's his promotional video where he explains to his subscribers what the queue jumping software does.
Welcome to the Golden Circle. I'm Josh, one of the co-founders, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through our server. But first and foremost, I need to introduce you to the tiers of membership that you're going to see inside the circle. So at tier 1, this is where you're going to be getting the main pools and the low risk pools. This does not mean low profit, it's still going to be a higher return on investment. But it's going to be the big acts, the big events, so we know you are going to take a profit home.
Josh Silverman and his colleagues charge £99 a month for a subscription to the Golden Circle. And for that, its members get guidance on how to use the software. It's known as a queue pass. A queue pass is a piece of computer code which members use to manipulate the queuing systems used by companies like Ticketmaster.
So you now have access to Golden software and tools. Golden software is a queue handler. So imagine you have a few hundred people in the queue for you when Ticketmaster releases an event that has 20,000 people in the waiting room. The software tries to put you right into the front and generally gets a load of people through for you. It will then send a URL to your Discord where you can then go to cart the tickets and check out.
Carting is another word for putting something in your online basket. You and I would do it by clicking on a mouse. The Golden Circle software does it for ticket touts automatically.
It was an amazing piece, that, Shari. There'll be listeners who will remember hearing it. Was so extraordinary. I mean, among other things were extraordinary, the brass neck of it, when there have been so many crackdowns on ticket touting. How is he still doing this? How is it still happening?
Well, we know there are at least 8 groups with this kind of software, and there are thousands of people using it. But it's because there's money in it, and people are willing to chance their hand. There's not enough enforcement. There are laws against harvesting large numbers of tickets. Using computer bots, it's already illegal to use multiple identities, multiple credit cards, multiple addresses to buy those tickets, and several people have gone to prison for what is essentially fraudulent trading. Those laws came in 2017, and only last week 4 people from Norfolk were convicted of that fraudulent trading. They had used multiple identities to buy tickets and resell them, but they made £6.5 million doing that. So you can see
the trade-off.
Yeah, you can see
why.
It's
high risk but high profit.
There's new legislation going through the Lords at the moment will give the regulator powers to enforce those laws, but the government feels that's enough. It doesn't want to go any further. Ministers have told us here on You and Yours that there are more pressing concerns for consumers, like dodgy builders, for example.
So what is the difference then between the law that we currently have and what Keir Starmer is now promising?
Well, Keir Starmer is promising a completely different approach to this. He just wants to kill the profit you can make on selling a ticket. And they have done that in Ireland, in France and Australia, and it's had a massive impact on the market.
So you just limit the amount of uplift when you resell the ticket?
Yeah, in Ireland, France and Australia, you can only sell a ticket for what you bought it for, at face value. So there is no profit motive. Now, I spoke with the boss of Viagogo, the biggest ticket reseller in the UK. He's called Chris Miller, and I spoke to him last summer, and he defended his business model.
There are many buyers and fans
that prefer using this. And that I think is really important, is that lots of people don't actually want to
prefer
yes,
using you,
absolutely.
not are forced to use you.
No, prefer, because there are lots of fans that decide on factors of going to these events that are subjective, right? It could be they don't want to deal with the on-stage. They don't want to be forced to get up on Friday morning and wait in a queue that may or may not ever happen. Maybe they don't know where they're going to be.
But you're telling me that someone will purchase a Taylor Swift ticket and not want to go?
Absolutely. There's plenty of situations where fans will buy a ticket, purchase it for an insurance policy, and then ultimately sell it because they weren't sure where they were going to be. If you're buying something 9 months in advance without really any certainty about where you're going to be, but you know that your preference is, I would rather hold on to it just as a security measure, but now I have the ability to resell.
So you're suggesting that people would buy a ticket for Taylor Swift, and believe me, I've seen tears for this, trying to get hold of tickets, and think, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't go, without profit being noted.
Yes, absolutely. We see it all the time. So in the UK alone, 50% of the tickets that sell on our website sell below face value. So the way that some of these events work is that a significant amount of tickets are actually pre-allocated, and Taylor will be exactly the same way, mind you, pre-allocated to a number of different stakeholders. So it could be sponsors, it could be the federations, it could be the concert promoter, it could be the friends and family.
So I asked about Labour's plans, and I asked Viagogo, and they say they don't like the idea of banning profit. In their statement, I'll just read it to you. It says, significant evidence suggests that imposing resale restrictions and removing safeguards forces fans to unverified sites and social media, exposing them to the high risk of fraud without any protection.
Sharibel, thank you. Well, Adam Webb runs the campaign group, the Fanfare Alliance, and it has been campaigning against ticket types in Oslo for many, many years. So Adam, Labour's proposing to do something that has been done in some other countries, to cap the kind of markup on these ticket resales, to make it something really small. They haven't said what it will be yet, but the idea would be to make it not worth the effort for a ticket tout. Where it has been tried, does it work, in your opinion?
Yes, it has worked. I mean, as Shari indicated, there's actually, there's slight differences in the models in different countries. So I believe in Australia, you cannot resell in New South Wales and Victoria for 10% over the price of the ticket. In Ireland, it's just a straightforward, you can't resell for profit. And if it's in France, and these are just 3 countries, then it's the promoter has some decision in terms of whether anyone's allowed to resell. But in Ireland, for instance, you will not see Taylor Swift playing in Dublin, Coldplay playing in Dublin. Those shows are just not on Viagogo.
Sorry, so what you're saying is that where it's tried, you just don't see the tickets on the resale sites when they're on in those countries, when Taylor Swift is on in Ireland, for example?
Certainly, and in Ireland, and obviously the Irish market, again, sometimes it can be hard to compare these markets to the UK, because it's a much smaller country, but as a test case, absolutely, those shows are just not listed on Viagogo, which obviously then allows the official market to provide the best service, and obviously that's the other side of the coin here. We want to see the industry step up and make sure they're providing the right kind of services that fans want, not the kind of services which touts want. And again, it's interesting hearing Mr. Miller's comment about fans reselling tickets. 80 to 90% of the listings on his website are from large-scale ticket touts. It's not consumers selling tickets. It's large.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you been consulted by Labour about what they should set this cap at?
So we've spoken to Labour at length about this. I think obviously clearly there's a long way to go here, and obviously they're still in opposition at the moment. I mean, I think from our campaign's perspective, we would like to see an Irish-style solution. So literally just saying you cannot resell for profit. It's a lot cleaner and a lot easier to understand.
Won't you still be left with the problem of too little enforcement, though? The problem we have now, that the government is right. The laws are there. It's just that they're not enforced rigorously enough. And who would have the, how would we as a nation have the resources to keep on and on trying to keep a step ahead of these people?
Well, look, I think if Ireland's done it, and I can't see any reason why we can't do it in the UK. And I think what it does as well is it provides absolute clarity of what's allowed and what's not allowed. I think the problem.
So make it simpler to prosecute, you mean?
But also actually for companies like Google as well, because they're another part of this problem. I mean, again, Viagogo, the two things that Viagogo needs for its business, it needs touts to supply the tickets, and it needs Google for advertising. In France, for instance, because the law is clear-cut, the French promoters and live music industry were able to take Google to court to say, look, these companies are not allowed, they're acting unlawfully in what they're doing, they should not be allowed to advertise. That stops, again, that cut off the link with Google advertising. Again, it's really, really hard for us to get Google to do anything until there's clarity in law. So I just think it's just going to make it a lot easier just to move this whole market forward. And again, without search advertising, which is the funnel for consumers, again, it's just another issue in sort of keeping this market afloat.
Adam Webb from the Fanfare Alliance, thank you so much. You're listening to Your News, Radio 4's consumer programme. Do you have an old digital point-and-shoot camera in the back of a drawer somewhere? Well, if you do, it might be time to dust it off and sell it. The cameras are popular at the minute, mainly with younger people who didn't use them the first time around. These people like the vintage quality of the pictures and the fact that you can't make everything look perfect. And they're posting the pictures they've taken with these point-and-shoot digital cameras all over social media. Some old digital cameras are selling for as much as £200. So can this trend last, and can the old cameras keep going much longer? Max Ballard uses an old digital point-and-shoot camera. He has set up the Camera Nostalgia Club channel on YouTube, and Joshua Waller is the online editor of Amateur Photographer magazine, and he's written about the appeal of these old digital cameras. And guys, welcome both of you, and good afternoon to you. Joshua, tell us about these old digital cameras then. When were they popular the first time around?
The first time around was from around 2000 onwards, and they became really, really popular in about 2012. There were maybe about 200 cameras released that year alone.
So they were popular. Why do people want them again? As I said, they were completely overtaken, weren't they, by the camera and the mobile?
Yeah, I think they give a different kind of look, as you mentioned, and they can be cheap as well. You can get cheaper models, and then you don't really have to worry about you taking your phone somewhere where you might not want it to be damaged.
Oh, I see. So people are using them because they're not so worried about losing them or having them pinched.
I think that'll be one reason. Yeah, I think you've got a £600 phone or a £50 camera, and you could just take it to parties, have fun. And the other benefit is that they've got a real flash that gives you a much nicer image than a phone does. Phones just use a small LED flash, and it's a completely different look.
In what way is it nicer?
A real flash on a sort of real camera or a compact point and shoot is much brighter than on a phone, and it kind of gives you a look as though you're kind of doing fashion photography. It's popular in those kind of circles as well, and can be really flattering for portraits.
Max Ballard, how did you start using these cameras, these old point-and-shoot digitals?
Hello, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
Well, it started as a comfortable way to get into photography, as it was a bit overwhelming at first with all the different options out there. And then after I took a few pictures, I just fell in love with the look and the nostalgia in them, because obviously they're from like 10 years ago. And it took me back to my childhood, really. And then I realised that the form factor was perfect for me, as I was quite a shy photographer at first, so it's a discreet way to take pictures and feel comfortable doing it.
What, you mean people don't realise what you're doing? What did you call it, the form factor?
Yeah, they're quite small, so you can just slip them in your pocket. I like to walk around and take pictures in villages and stuff. And when I first started, I could just picture people like twitching from their curtains and thinking, what's he doing taking pictures?
Because you would have been using a bigger camera, not the camera on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously when you first start, it can be a bit overwhelming, as I said. There's just so much to take into consideration. So having that small little camera, I don't know, it just felt perfect, yeah.
Joshua, these cameras store the images on a card, don't they? And you need a card reader to download some of them onto a computer. Do the manufacturers still make the cameras and the kits?
The memory cards are easy enough to find, and you can get an adapter for your phone, so you can plug the memory card into your phone, into the USB on your phone, and then you can transfer them straight to your phone, which makes it easier when you might not want to use a computer to do that.
So, when you said easy enough to get the cards, are they still making them?
It depends on the model. If you have a camera with an SD card, they're readily available. They're easy to find. But if you go too far back, if your camera's too old, then you run into all sorts of different kinds of memory card problems. There were lots of different technologies right at the beginning of the digital camera market.
So, what would you have to bear in mind then? If you're listening to this and you think you'd like to give this a try, there are loads of these cameras, aren't there, on the resale sites. What should you bear in mind if you're buying one?
I would look for one of the main brands, you know, Sony, Fuji, Olympus, Canon, Nikon, one of the main brands, and also check that it uses an SD memory card. That's going to be the easiest to deal with.
An SD memory card?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's also worth looking at what kind of battery it uses, and seeing if you can get spare batteries for it, because batteries don't always last, you know, 10, 15 years on these cameras.
Max, as a user of these cameras then, are you noticing changes in the price?
Yeah, well, I think that you can still go out and get one for a good price from someone that doesn't really know exactly the prices are rising. I've noticed on eBay that you could probably go and get your dream digital camera point and shoot from back then for around £40. But you will get some people that have caught on to the trend and have really bumped the prices up to silly prices, to be honest. But if you just hold out and keep your eye, I'd recommend eBay out of all of them. Just keep your eye, you will find a bargain out there.
Do you think it's going to last, this, Max, or do you think it'll just come and go?
I do think it will last because at the moment, obviously, we're having this conversation about